You're listening to Built to Convert, the podcast where growth-minded marketers, founders, and creators come to level up. No hype, no guesswork, just bold insights that drive results. Let's go.
Welcome to Built to Convert, the podcast where we explore how strategy, analytics, and creativity come together to drive meaningful growth. I'm your host, Tyler Lane, founder of Session Interactive. Each episode, we sit down with marketers, founders, and operators who are building real momentum inside today's most interesting companies. All right, so this episode is brought to you by Session Interactive, the performance marketing agency built for brands that are serious about SEO, paid media, and analytics. If your internal team needs expert horsepower or your strategy needs sharper insights, we help brands of all shapes and sizes drive measurable revenue with less guesswork. Learn more at sessioninteractive.com. All right, good one today. Individual I've known for some time, Dan Mail, co-founder of Mariner11, a consultancy that helps SMEs sharpen their positioning, compete against enterprise brands, and build durable growth through integrated search and brand strategy. Dan brings expertise in senior agency leadership within solo consulting. Again, I've known Dan for a while and can speak directly to his expertise in SEO and a variety of other services. We'll dig into his founder's journey and how smaller brands can level up the playing field and how AI is reshaping the landscape within SMBs. Dan, good to see you, man.
Yeah, you too, Tyler. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. Absolutely. My pleasure. All right. So as I mentioned before we started recording here is kind of, I love to just spend some time learning more about your, career trajectory, but more so what you've been up to lately. I know you co-founded Mariner11. That's awesome. What were you doing the last couple of years before that? And then let's jump into Mariner11. I want to hear about what you're building there.
Yeah. So Mariner11, we actually just launched in October of this year. So we're pretty new, about 6 weeks public. And prior to that, I had been consulting on my own from about 2019 until this year. I was sort of an independent marketing consultant, and I specialized in consulting for both agencies and brands, doing a lot of different things. I was a fractional CMO in certain smaller businesses. I was a fractional marketing director at agencies. I did some consulting and capacity building with some more established agencies, helping them to build up their media and marketing infrastructure. So I've kind of worn a lot of hats, but I've been independent and a remote worker actually since before COVID, since 2019. And then prior to that, I was at MRM McCann, part of the McCann World Group, underneath the umbrella of IPG. And I led the search and linguistics department in New York City there for many years. And so was in New York for a while, built up my marketing career there, and then moved out to Denver when I wanted to go off on my own in 2019. And now I'm co-leading Mariner11.
Yeah, I love that. Always been impressed by your background, Dan. It's really cool to see. Talk to us about the transition from being a solo practitioner into co-founding an agency. What was the desire? I mean, a lot of people will say like, hey, you had something good going on the consulting side as a solo consultant, and you could build that up. What was the desire to move into more of an established agency structure?
Yeah, so I like to say that you go faster alone, but you go farther together. And I had been, mostly independent for 6 years, and I love that. I love that period in my career. I had other business partners along the way. Our mutual friend Paula Novacki and I, we partnered, and I helped co-lead PN Media, but it wasn't in such a formalized capacity. And I think I was ready personally to partner up officially and be more part of a team in a collaborative process to take my career to the next level to meet sort of my personal and professional goals. And so my business partner, her name is Francesca Furchgott. We'd actually been working together for 2.5 years. We had been collaborating on some mutual clients, but this year she actually approached me and asked if I was interested in formalizing our partnership. At the time, Francesca was running her own consultancy called Conifer Co, and I was doing my own thing. And so we were collaborating well together on some shared projects. Me kind of leading a lot of the performance in media and SEO side of things, and she leading the content marketing, email, and social. And so we had some really good complementary skill sets, and we had been working really well together for 2.5+ years. And when she approached me about it, I didn't hesitate to say yes. That sounded great. So that's sort of personally what led to my decision to want to sort of not be a fully independent practitioner anymore and actually be part of a team. And then why we wanted to sort of establish an agency, well, neither of us really had any real brands, right? I was operating under Daniel Mail Consulting LLC, and she had Conifer Co., but she hadn't invested a ton in branding that agency or branding herself as an agency per se. But what we wanted to do was, rather than just be two freelancers partnering together, we actually wanted to build something real. And in order to do that, we knew we had to build a brand as a boutique agency and start hiring really smart, talented, strategic people underneath us to help execute that work.
That's awesome. Shout out to Paula, one of the best people out there, one of the best connectors as well.
For sure.
That's how you and I met. I love that story. What about the SMB target? Because you've got experience working with massive brands, I think probably as of late, but prior to establishing Mariner11, I know 6 weeks in still. That's congrats. 6 months or 6 weeks?
6 weeks. 6 weeks.
Yeah. Pretty awesome. What was that desire to focus on the SMB vertical versus more mid-market enterprise?
Yeah, I think it was a conflation of a number of different factors. One was the practicality element of, we just have a lot of connections who are business owners, right? So Francesca, she got her MBA from Harvard. And so she has a lot of connections who are, and friends who are entrepreneurs and business owners and professional CEOs. Just in my 6+ years of consulting, I've done a lot of independent consulting for individual businesses. Some of them are small businesses, small business owners, friends and family and connections from there. And others are just, people in the industry that I've met. So there's a practical element to it for sure. But we also tried to identify a gap in the market from a business standpoint so that Mariner11 could be successful. And what we've just learned throughout the course of our careers is that there's an unmet need from small and mid-sized businesses, or also known as SMBs, but small to mid-sized businesses, of really strategic agencies that have brand and brand strategy at the center of that, at a price point that SMBs can actually afford, right? So most of our competitors, most digital agencies or ad agencies that focus on small and mid-sized businesses, they're really executioners. They're good at one-off projects, or maybe they'll just do media and they'll do commoditized media really well for a certain sector, right? You see this all the time. We're an agency for dental offices or for legal services or something like that, right? And it's a lot of plug and play and repeat. But we feel like there's a lot of small and medium-sized businesses that need to compete better, especially in the proliferation of AI and in today's digital era, where it's becoming harder and harder to compete, that there's an underserved need there. And there's not a lot of agencies that really provide strategic thinking, strong brand stewardship, as well as performance-based execution at an affordable price point. Because most of the people that do that and that can do that, they are working for bigger agencies, or they are bigger agencies that are targeting larger scopes for, mid-market, large companies and enterprise brands.
Yeah, I totally get that. How about with smaller brands? And this isn't always true, but this is true. They have a ton going on, and they've got a lot of day-to-day activities, and then they've got the shiny thing in the corner, right? That which they really want to pursue, but they don't necessarily have time or resource to allocate. How do you work with SMBs to get them more just focus on potential lead driving or revenue driving activities versus trying to boil everything under the sun?
Yeah. So it's a great question. I think there's two things. There's two natural traits of SMBs that make this actually not as difficult. One is SMBs tend to have more budgetary constraints than larger companies, right? They're smaller companies, they have less revenue, so they generally just on the whole have less to invest, and so they're not like fiscally forced to prioritize. But the second is more interesting to me, is that most of our clients are actually the business owners or the founders or the CEOs,
Sure.
right, of those companies. And all the companies we work with already have a proven business model. They are already operating profitably, right? We do work with some startups, but we're not working with Series C, Series D startups that are operating at a huge loss, but are still running on venture capital, et cetera, right? These are businesses that have proven business models where the founder or the CEO has basically driven business success to a certain point. And the characteristics of that type of person, right, that business owner, naturally is one that knows how to prioritize. Now, of course, not always. And as companies grow, right, you start to lose control over all of those different variables, and you want to maybe test your feet in a lot of different waters. But typically, for most of our clients, they're really open to prioritizing what is going to be most valuable for their business. And because we're fairly picky about the clients that we work with, as I know you are as well, we want to work with business owners that are invested in marketing or I guess invested in growing their business and have a belief in marketing. And so they tend to view us as partners, and they want to hire a partner. They're not just hiring somebody to, burn out tasks or, just hands on keyboard. We need this person to do this and this person to do that. If they were doing that, they would just hire a handful of disparate freelancers or something like that. But when they're coming to us, they really want a partner. And so we will try to prove out the value of marketing as it leads to business objectives, right? So we always start every engagement. What is the business objective you're looking to do? Yeah. Right now, we have one client who they have lost some of their revenue just due to increased competition, due to AI, and they have very clear business objectives. It's like stop the bleeding and then recoup some of the lost,
Gotcha.
the lost revenue, right? So with very clear business objectives, you say, okay, these are the marketing initiatives that we think are going to be likeliest to help you achieve that business objective, and that really helps our clients prioritize what they need to.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I think just having a strategic partner instead of, as you mentioned, just like a pure tactician. It's like, hey, that's not what and that's not really, in my mind, too, what establishes those real long-term client engagements. A tactician versus a strategist that has the tactician background and capabilities. It's more of the latter that really continues to work well.
Right.
Let's switch gears here, Dan, a bit. The hot acronym for the last couple of years around AI specifically. It's exhausting, right? We're all talking about it, we're all using it, but it's really the biggest, kind of the sexiest thing right now. In terms of, I guess it's in similar to my last question around the shiny thing, right? I think there is this level of intimidation. There's this level of skepticism. There's also this level of just like, oh gosh, I'm so far behind, right, with my usage of AI. And I'm talking in kind of the SMB's shoes here, if you will. How are you seeing it change certain aspects of what you're doing on a day-to-day and how you're bringing things to the table? We can talk about this more of an SEO lens as it relates to LLMs and gaining exposure there, or feel free to take the answer however you'd like.
Yeah. So at Mariner11, we have three core beliefs. We're basically founded on these three principles. So the first, and this relates directly to your question, is that we believe brand marketing is the key to a company's success in the AI age. Number two is that we believe small and mid-sized businesses need more strategic partners to build great brands. And then the third is that we believe building great brands for SMBs creates positive ripple effects in our communities.
Sure. Love it.
Okay, so that's sort of what we're founded on. But the very first principle of that, again, is that brand marketing is the key to a company's success in the AI age, is really what we're founded upon, right? And that this goes back to sort of why we were targeting SMBs in the first place. And so we're starting to see a lot of questions, actually less directly from our clients, because I think that SMBs have been generally a little bit less impacted from generative AI assistants like Cloud or ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever than enterprise companies and bigger brands, but they're still being affected. And so we are certainly talking about this all the time, like you. And at a high level, I like to approach everything from a business standpoint, right? Because that's at the bottom line. Our clients care about their business's bottom line, right? They don't principally care about how much SEO traffic they're getting or what their click-through rates are on media spend, right? They care about revenue and profit and CAC and things like that. So from a business standpoint, what I'm telling my clients is that the world has really changed, certainly in the last 2.5, 3 years since OpenAI opened up their AI, but really also even going farther back, with Google search, and we really live in the age of commoditization, excuse me. It's a copycat league, right? When it comes to the for-profit world. Totally. It's rare that a company's product is so unique that it can win on the product alone, right? The iPhone was once revolutionary. Today, it's not objectively better than the Galaxy or other smartphones, right? So what does Apple do? Apple spends hundreds of millions of dollars in advertising, pretty much just focused on the camera feature of the iPhone as its sales hook, right? The same thing with Nike sneakers, right? They created the first real running shoe, and that was a completely unique, revolutionary product. It actually created the industry for jogging, pretty much, like a mass market for jogging. But today, most of their marketing is spent on celebrity athlete sponsorships, right? And leaning into their Just Do It brand to make their customers feel, quote unquote, cool when wearing their sneakers, right? So if AI is going to make it easier for new businesses to enter your space and make it easier for people to compare product, price, information, features through these Gen AI assistants, then companies need to evolve. Companies of all sizes, SMBs all the way up to enterprise brands. And what I've been recommending to my clients is really 4 things. And we can get into the tactics of SEO and GEO in a second, but those 4 sort of big things that I think businesses need to be thinking about are A, running more brand awareness campaigns so that you get your brand in front of more people, right? Because AI tools, they may or may not be recommending you, but what they are not a replacement for are other places in people's lives, TV, out of home, on the internet, when they're on social media, right? Even when they're searching on Google, all basically anywhere where you can see advertisements, running more brand awareness campaigns to basically get people more aware of your brand. That's going to increase the pool of potential prospects and help your bottom line. Number 2, investing more in your customer, right? Investing in customer experience, investing in customer success, customer service. That will help to increase the lifetime value of your customers, improve reviews, of which there still is no substitute for many companies, right? Customer reviews and testimonials. And that will help your bottom line. Doing more CRO, right? Conversion rate optimization on your website. So even if you are a website that has lost traffic, right? If you've lost, say, 20% of your traffic from, AI tools or whatever, but you can increase your CRO even nominally, right? If you can increase your conversion rates by 5%, depending on how the numbers shake out, you could actually make up that entire gap in lost traffic, right? By making your website and your sales process more effective and more efficient.
Yep.
And then the last thing is just continue doing what's working, right? If you haven't necessarily been impacted by AI and you're still driving a lot of revenue through your traditional paid media approach or SEO, continue doing that, right? You can always pivot when the time comes, and you can plan ahead and do these first 3 things, but you should continue to do what's working so you don't, shoot yourself in the foot.
Yeah, those are really excellent points, Dan, and kind of good tenets for the SMBs to follow. Let's get into, the updated acronym, if you will, GEO, AEO. There's a couple of others that are floating around. I know there's some infighting within the SEO community. What are your statements? Because it's funny where a lot of these pundits are like, oh, it's, this is a world where I think Lily Ray, shout out to Lily Ray, she's amazing. And she always brings the heat with some of her LinkedIn posts. But it was hilarious the other day. She posted something about an individual that was interviewed and stated like, well, it's different these days. You got to still maintain the core principles of SEO, but you have to get links and brand mentions out there. And it was literally just regurgitating things, or reiterating things rather, that have been established for the last decade plus, as new, packaging it up as new or updated strategies. What are your thoughts as it relates to kind of GEO as a whole, and realizing that there's no playbook, but we do know some influential factors. But how do you incorporate some of those updated items or more traditional items back into the strategies that you're rolling out for clients?
Yeah. So first, on sort of the acronyms or the names bit, right? GEO stands for Generative Engine Optimization. There's also LLMO, Large Language Model Optimization, AI Search, right? They all mean the same thing. And it's just funny that we're still in the most nascent time of this field that we haven't even established a name. I wasn't working when SEO, I think, first came on the scene working professionally. I don't know if there were different names for what it was called, but I feel like at some point there will be one name that beats out all the others. But we can use GEO just for the purposes of this conversation. So yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot to be said for that post. As SEOs, and you and I have both deep experience in the SEO field. We've spent a lot of our career as SEO practitioners there, right? What we used to do and still do from an SEO standpoint is we would write content for humans, but optimize it for machines. And we're still doing that with GEO, right? You still need to write content for humans, and now you're optimizing it for a machine. But the AI machine, right, functions differently than the traditional search engine, right? ChatGPT does not operate off an index, right? It's pattern recognition, okay, trained off of billions upon billions of data points and learning elements, right? A search engine operates off an index and uses 200 plus signals and classification and tagging to figure out which results to show, right? But you're still inherently doing the same thing at your core of your writing for humans and optimizing it for search engines, okay? And so the writing for humans part shouldn't really change, right? That is generally the same. You still need to write quality content. It still needs to be real. It still needs to be truthful. It should be value additive rather than just a regurgitation of whatever is out there on the internet. It should generally reflect your brand as well as speak to your audience, right? If you're trying to sort of drive some business there. And then the optimization for machine stuff, now you're just sort of layering in some extra things that AI tools that maybe weren't as important to search engines, right? And so some of those things are the way you structure and chunk your content, right? So AI tools really like lists. They like bulleted lists, numerical lists. And so the more you can structure sort of key points that can be, listified, the more likely it is for an AI tool to, pick up your content. The AI tools really like quotes and they like citations. So if you're citing relevant sources and you're providing things in quotes, that makes it more likely for an AI tool to pick up.
Sure.
AI tools also, just like search engines, they need to be able to crawl your content and find your content, understand what it is. So ensuring that you have no limitations in your robots.txt file, ensuring proper internal linking, right? Ensuring your sitemaps are up to date, all will make it easier and make it more likely that AI tools will crawl your site and then cite you for relevant prompts within those tools. So I don't think it's as different as a lot of people make it out to be, but there are definitely some things that you can do within on the technical side of your website and as you write and create content that still keep you optimized for search engines as well as for AI tools.
What do you say to an individual like an SMB? We're obviously focusing on that really wants to scale content and maybe saw a webinar or watched a YouTube video or something around utilizing or just used an LLM and say like, oh, this is a great use case for creating content at scale. What are I know you kind of alluded to it or mentioned some of it directly, but it's around keeping that level, maintaining that level of authenticity versus just trying to scale and kind of spray and pray. We're seeing quite a bit of this idea of a talk about it a number of months ago, but around the sea of sameness, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas, everyone feels as though like they're a junior copywriter at this point, right? They can establish certain things and generate content, great, and publish it. But this sea of mediocre content is becoming more and more abundant. The terrible content is not nearly as much as it used to be, but now with Gen AI, the sea of mediocre has become quite a force. But we're still seeing the exceptional content lacking. What would you say to that? And again, an SMB that's coming to you, like, why can't you just scale this utilizing AI? Why do you need a human?
Yeah. So I'm going to bring back our friend Paula here. Nice. When we were drafting the content for our Mariner11 website, Francesca and I made it a really strong point that our web content was not going to be written or aided by the use of AI tools. We, as a brand agency, have to really, demonstrate a really strong brand voice. And we asked, a few peers and friends and people close to us to kind of review our website and give us their thoughts on our brand positioning and our messaging statement and all that. And Paula's first comment was, she said how refreshing it was that our website doesn't just read like half of the other, or all of the other tech SaaS startups that all sound the same, totally. Right, on their website with all their features and all their content and everything. It very much, she was relating to us that it sounds like we have an actual voice, and she could tell specifically that it wasn't written by an AI tool. Mm-hmm. And that wasn't one of our prompts to her, anyone else that we were getting feedback from. That was just that was what came through to her as the biggest thing. And that is great feedback to us. And that's exactly what we want to hear, right? When prospects come to our website, we want them to know that there's real people behind Mariner11 and we practice what we preach. And if we're able to, have some real brand literature and brand language on our website that comes from our own brains, we'll do the same for your clients. And so that, I think, to your point of the sea of sameness, it is so obvious when people are writing emails through AI tools, right? People are writing content, blog posts, social media posts. And if there's certain spaces where it just doesn't really matter because you don't need to let your brand voice shine, or you don't need to have some unique messaging, then I think it's great to use AI tools to basically save yourself a lot of cost and time. And use that to basically create content, right? Some examples of that, it would be in ad copy messaging, right? Writing headlines and descriptions for Google Ads, no problem for the most part, right? You can throw in your own brand tagline in a headline or a description, right? You can modify that. But if you need to write hundreds of headlines, great, do that through AI. Or if you are, if you're a company and you have 1,000 SKUs, right, and you need just some sort of standardized product messaging for each SKU. And, it's not, custom products that really need to have some big, beautiful aesthetic that you're trying to sell, but you need to just talk about features and what this product entails. The implications of using AI or the downsides are pretty nominal and they're outweighed by the upsides. But if you're doing something, you're writing a TV spot, or you're working on your brand website, right? Or you're writing, social posts for a brand campaign. I think it's pretty important to really try to use some genuinely good copywriters and content strategists to do that, because it really does still show to a lot of people, and it is quite obvious. And if you're trying to make a sale, let alone trying to have your brand name or your brand identity imprinted on the minds of prospects and customers, it is really important to stand out. And the way to stand out from that sea of sameness is to, lean into your brand and lean into your own creativity.
It is so true. Just that I think we're all striving for the most part of seeking out authenticity. And I think that is can continue to maintain as much as possible, utilizing AI and workflow related tools to help ideate and take care of some of the mundane remedial tasks, continue to make sense, and utilize AI as a strategic partner. But actually, the human is not going away anytime soon.
Right.
Needs to be that level of involvement.
Right. The other piece of advice I would recommend to marketers, and things that we definitely have done on our work individually as well as with our clients, is sometimes we'll use AI to generate outlines.
Sure. Yep.
Right. For kind of longer form content. Right. Here's what I'm thinking. What are the 5 key points I should highlight? What are, citing other sources or, looking at other authorities in this space, what would they say? And then writing from there. Right. So there's as well as, proofreading and editing and fine tuning and, finding maybe the right synonym for this. Right. There are certain stages along the writing process that there's just no substitute for AI that can really help. But keeping that core voice is really important for a lot of pieces of content.
I know you've been doing this now for a long time, and working with SMBs. Is it tough sometimes at your level to be working with a founder, for example, that is, I got a million other priorities, right? They obviously trust you and the team at Mariner11. However, is it tough to get their focus, one, and then it's tough to be like, you have got this grand vision, and then it's tough to actually put into action, right? I mean, as consultants and agency owners, we've provided a million recommendation, and only a small amount of those recommendations have actually been implemented. What sort of approach are you taking to try to get more things implemented, to put more things into action?
Yeah. So I think a lot of the same bottlenecks exist when working with SMBs versus enterprise clients, right? Like, there are always going to be certain things where you need your client's approval on.
Of course, yeah.
Okay, and at an enterprise brand, right, they might have an entire digital marketing team, and your client is whatever, a digital marketing manager, and maybe their entire job is to manage you as well as their other couple of agencies, and so they have a lot more time, but then they might have more bureaucracy and more white tape and a whole legal team and regulatory team that might have to review certain things. So, we still have that same challenge, right? Oftentimes, for some of our smaller businesses, or some of our smaller clients, it is the CEO and the owner that is actually reviewing materials, approving plans. But some of our larger clients, they might have a marketing director or a COO who's responsible for that, who maybe has a little bit more time. But one way we do get around that is, Mariner11, we just offer basically a full service or mostly full service digital agency. We're not a development shop, though we do have dev partners for, website redesigns and technical implementations. But for the most part, we do everything from strategy to analysis to reporting to execution across all of our channels: SEO, email, content, social, et cetera. And because we're able to do that, we're not necessarily as reliant on so many other partners, preventing those bottlenecks. And so, if there's if one of our clients has to review this sort of thing, right? Like when we work on brand messaging guidelines, that's pretty important. That's something that a business owner is always going to want to review, right? We have a set process in place with a set timelines upfront, setting expectations, and our clients have been really good at prioritizing that. And again, that's the benefit of working with SMBs. It's because the business owners themselves are hiring us,
sure. Yeah.
Right? And if they're hiring us, they're basically investing their own money. They're not, I guess some of them might have some investment, but they're mostly self-funded, right? It's the money coming out directly of their company, their pocket. It's not some VC's money, down the line or something, or the money from, that they just get allocated to their department. But the implications of if it goes to waste are significantly less than if a business owner loses out on their marketing investment. So they're generally pretty invested in sticking to those timelines and prioritizing our work.
Yeah, I love that. There's something to be said about that, right? You're taking money out of essentially their income, right? Especially if they're drawing from the company on a continuous basis. So yeah, theoretically, right, they're more bought in and more willing to get things implemented.
Yeah.
Let's switch gears here, Dan, in terms of just like how you stay sharp, right? Are there particular individuals that continue to influence you on the business side, on the marketing side? Obviously, there's a whole slew of information online of things to do and trends to follow and certain things. What keeps you influenced, and who are those individuals?
Yeah. So I think I learn more from having conversations with people like you, right? With my peers in the industry, right? Other business owners, other marketers, hearing case studies and hearing their own experiences than I do specifically following influencers.
Yeah.
But there are definitely like some influencers that I follow on LinkedIn and track all their stuff. And I think Rand Fishkin is one of those. Right, the founder of Moz, now the founder of SparkToro. I think has always been a brilliant mind in the SEO and kind of digital acquisition based marketing side of things. Pedro Laboy, who runs an AI transformation consultancy called Brand Nexus. He posts content basically every day on LinkedIn all about AI, and that's not just in the marketing world, but though it does touch marketing, it's basically AI transformation at every stage, from small businesses to enterprise level. And so if you're looking for information around and to kind of upskill and up knowledge from an AI standpoint, he's really good. So I would say those are two people that I kind of check on regularly, and I think are really good. Will Reynolds, also from Sear Interactive, I think that is. They used to just be an SEO agency, and then I remember at one point they started selling PPC to their clients, and he had a post about how so many SEOs and paid search people see themselves as enemies.
Yeah.
But he was citing all these stats about how they integrated paid search and SEO into the same team. And he's like these two I didn't even know like how powerful paid search could be, but like these two competencies can really augment each other. And from that point on, I was at MRM at this point in time. And I integrated the paid search practice with the SEO practice and dual trained everyone to basically have foundational knowledge of both. And so, yeah, Will's really good too.
Yeah. Yeah, well, shout out to Will and the team at Sear. Great stuff. And I think you're absolutely right. It's so funny just to think about those individuals, like the paid search professionals and the SEO professionals, and how, still to this day, there's just not as much collaboration integration as there needs to be on that front. At the end of the day, you're trying to expand your landscape within the SERP as much as possible. And now within LLMs, as those tools or those platforms are going to roll out ads here soon, why not share more of the knowledge there?
Right. You found a lot of success in that too, right? Like within your core competencies are analytics, SEO, and paid media.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Is that right? So yeah, I mean, you also have been doing this for a while. I'm sure you've found a lot of success sort of integrating, paid search with SEO and finding economies of scale there, and a lot of like dual wins.
Yeah.
From those.
Yeah, it's important. It's important. I think, Classic is a classic example of just the siloed piece of going into a pitch, right? You're pitching multi-service, but you're breaking them out into different channels, and they are different, of course, but you really want to flip that on its head to a certain extent and try to promote more of an integrated plan, right? An actual approach of utilizing channels that you think are going to be most effective to target the client's ICP.
Right.
And obviously, if you're utilizing SEO and paid search, there's a ton of crossover. Dan, so learned a lot about the business and certain things around it. You're 6 weeks in. There's a lot of process and certain things to establish, and collaborations happening, a ton of conversations. Obviously, you got sales, you got finance, you got ops, you have so many different things. What are you doing to avoid burnout and not drive yourself crazy in this whole build timeline here?
Yeah. So the most important thing there is having a business partner. I think really helps avoid burnout. Right? You and I, we've spoken about this before, just offline in our personal interactions before, of being a solo founder versus having a co-founder. And for me personally, that's super helpful because I don't have to do everything alone. And Francesca and I we're still pretty early on, even though we've been building this business for this, for most of this year publicly. We've only been live for six weeks or so. And so we're still figuring out some of those divisions of labor, but just having somebody that's on my level, that's just as strategic as I am, that's just as driven as I am, that's just as capable and competent as I am, and certainly more capable and more competent in certain areas, right, in her domains. And there's other things that I'm more experienced in and bring to the table. But having somebody that has enough overlap in the things that a founder and business owner needs to have, as well as having enough complementary skill sets, has been huge. So I'm not having to work 60 hours a week, every week, even in this early stage. And then the other thing is we are investing in senior only staff. So our business model is a little bit more unique than other agencies. And I think you guys actually operate this way too, if I'm not mistaken. And it's starting to become a little bit more commonplace, particularly within unique agencies. But the traditional agency model, right, is you have a handful of sort of executives and EVPs and SVPs that pitch and lead all the strategy and are there for the most important clients and the biggest engagements. And those people you might actually be losing money on, right? Because you bill them out at an hourly rate that you have to basically pay them for that, or sometimes they're not even funded within a scope, and then you make money on all your junior staff, right? That you're paying a lot of kids out of college or kids within 2, 3, 4 years of experience that's tackling 50% of the billable work within the scope. But for us, everyone on our team has at least 10 years of experience. Everyone is super qualified, leading to great work. We vet everybody to make sure that they are strategic and analytical thinkers, and that they've been able to lead strategic exercises on their own, which means that we don't have to spend nearly as much time in the day-to-day.
Yep.
In fact, Francesca and I are barely touching the individual work, the pieces of email or the analyses or whatever. We're setting up standard operating procedures and having to do some of that, but significantly less than what I think a lot of our agency peers are doing. And that is saving us a lot of time, right? We pay really high rates for those, and that decreases our margin, but we think it's going to pay dividends on the back end because we can really focus on growing the agency. We can focus on the really strategic milestones for our clients. We can focus on building those relationships, on setting up our operations so that our agency can grow at scale. And so those two things, having a business partner and then having really high qualified or high quality and well qualified senior staff, I think has really helped avoid burnout so far.
Yeah, I think you articulated that well. Just if you're going to have a business partner, ensure that there's some complementary skill set. For example, if you're a practitioner, or if that individual is focusing on strategic relationships or sales, and a variety of other combinations. So that's awesome to hear. That's working out well for you. Dan, it's always a pleasure interacting, engaging with you. I really do appreciate your time. Let's tell people how they can interact with you directly and a little bit about where to find Mariner11.
Yeah, so you can find Mariner11 at our website, mariner11.com. We have a contact us page where You can fill out a form if you're looking for work. You can also book a free 30-minute consult with me if you're interested in just talking about a potential engagement. And you can book that directly on the website. I'm not big into personal social media, but I am active on LinkedIn, and so you can find me on LinkedIn. My name's Daniel Mail. I don't know the URL off the top of my head, so there's something codified.
Yep.
But if you go through Tyler Lane's connections, and you search my name Daniel Mail up there, you'll be sure to find me, and you can always reach me on LinkedIn as well.
Love it. Yeah, shout out to you and Francesco, what you guys are building. I love the model. I'm excited to follow along. Dan, we'll chat. Appreciate your time today. Great episode.
Yeah, thanks so much, Tyler. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to Built to Convert. If you're serious about growth, don't just listen. Subscribe, leave a review, and follow us for new episodes that drop straight into your feed. Until next time, keep building.